Welcome to MLS Basic 101. This webinar was previously recorded on June 2nd, 2021. Thank you for viewing. From the MLS Dashboard, which you should know by now, you log into this Clarity MLS Dashboard at dashboardmls.com. That will redirect you to the URL you see in the top of my screen right here. And this is also where you'll find training links. So I do want to point that out to you because you'll find a lot of additional training right down here in this area in the MLS training. But we're going to dive right into Matrix, the MLS system. So I'm going to click there. When we first jump into Matrix, sometimes you'll find that when you first come into Matrix, you'll be met with a news item similar to this. And because I've already opened this news item, you won't see it. But normally, when you have a brand new news item, what you'll see is I've read this or read later. If you select I've read this, then it will send that news alert to live over here in the news and alerts widget in the top left portion of your Matrix dashboard for a few days. Depending on the message, it typically lasts for a few days. If you choose read later, then the next time you log in to the MLS, you will see the news item pop up just like it is here. Just so you know, when we send these news alerts to pop up in Matrix, they're always something that's going to be of relevance. We don't waste your time. We know when you're jumping into Matrix, you're busy. So we don't waste a lot of your time with these news and alerts. So it's going to be something important. It might be an update to the rules and regulations or something to do. I saw one recently that was had to do with Cape Coral zoning. So it's going to be important things that are going to matter to you, things that you need to know. So do take the time to read them, even if you can't read them when you first log in and see the news alert. We are on the My Matrix dashboard right now. You'll notice across the top of the screen, we're on My Matrix. My Matrix is the tab where you will find everything that is personal to you in the Matrix system. So this is where you'll add contacts, you'll find your listings, you can view any emails that you sent, and that's whether it's a one-time email or an auto email. If you add listings to carts, you can find those here. If you create comparative market analysis, you'll find those here, my CMAs. And then any saved searches, and then any auto emails that you set up. And we'll be talking more about some of these things in just a moment. But this is, again, where you find everything that's personal to you in Matrix. The next tab is going to be the search tab. And you see you have all of the different property types. So residential income, rental properties, lot and land, commercial, and boat docks. Then you come to cross property. Cross property includes all of the other property types. So that's what cross property means. It's going to cover everything. And then you can also choose to search public records. Let's just say you're wanting to view a property or a parcel that's never been listed in the MLS. You can click on public record and search for it by owner name or by address. And that makes it nice because the public records are integrated into the Matrix database. So you don't have to leave the system in order to find that kind of information. You can search for agents, you can search for offices, and then there are, if you click on the more and you come down here, you'll notice you can search open houses as well. And then property history. We'll talk more about some of these things in just a bit. Other items, I'll let you know as we come to those things that we won't talk about today, or if we're going to be talking about them in the second part of the class today, which goes from 1 until 2:30. So I'll let you know what class to attend in order to get everything. This, of course, is MLS Basic 101, so it's really just half of the MLS Basic class. The stats we don't go over in this particular class. We do cover that in MLS Pro, and that will be conducted next Wednesday, 1 week from today at 10 a.m. The links, if you click on links, this is just where you're going to find a lot of links that are going to be important to you. Property appraiser's office, all kinds of things, different property appraisers' offices for Collier County, Lee County, other resources, Agent 3000. And some of these you're going to find are redundant. You'll find that in Matrix, you can do a lot of things in different places, but they accomplish the same result. So that's good. It's done to save you time, so you're not having to do a lot of clicking around. But don't be surprised when you see some things. Well, that's on the dashboard, or that's on the MLS dashboard. Yes, you're going to see some things in multiple places. Realist tax, if we were to click here, it would actually take us out to the full version of realist tax. And we do a webinar on that as well. It's going to be 2 weeks from today, and it's also at 10 a.m. and it's called Introduction to Public Records. And that's where we take you through realist, both really a deep dive into the integration with Matrix, and then we also go into the realist database from the MLS dashboard. And another thing that we talk about in that class, besides just going over everything that's available in the public records, is we'll also show you how you can farm a neighborhood, a subdivision, and set up some searches and print mailing labels and things like that using realist tax. The finance tab is going to provide you with some financial calculators. It shows you here seller's estimated net proceeds and then buyer's closing costs. But if I were to click on that link up there, that tab, you would find that there are all kinds of calculators in there. Input, this is where you go to enter your listings into the MLS. And also, if you want to edit your listings in the MLS, this would be where you would go to do that. We don't have a webinar right now on adding and editing listings, but if you click on MLS Training from the dashboard, you will find in the, I believe, well, let's just look real quick. I believe it is under, we just redid this. So under Virtual Classroom, if you click View Now, here's where you can find some self-paced training. So adding and editing listings, for example, generating market stats, marketing with Remind, and the MLS mobile app training is there as well. So here's the adding and editing listings training, and that just walks you through adding the listing into the MLS according to the rules and regulations. We're just going to close that down and go back into Matrix. And then finally, market reports. You won't have market reports unless you're a broker. So that's something that I have that you won't see unless you are a broker. Regardless of what screen you're on, you're always going to see this search bar. This is called the speed bar. If you click on this, let me close that down. If you click on this question mark, you can expand this window, and it kind of gives you a lot of instruction about how to use the speed bar. The speed bar doesn't like a lot of information. It prefers code or shortcuts. So this is a guide that kind of gives you some of that information. However, with that being said, in the MLS Pro class, we don't really go over it in the webinar, but there is a guide that I send along with that class that really expands on how to utilize the speed bar if you're interested in doing that. I'm going to go back to the dashboard here by just clicking on my matrix and selecting dashboard, and all the way over here on the right hand side of the screen. Can everyone see my screen okay? Do I need to make it bigger or smaller? Is everybody okay with the size of the screen? Okay, I'm not getting any no's, so I guess that means we're good. So over here on the right hand side, you see my name. And we'll talk about this little notification in just a moment, but right next to my name, and of course you'll see your name, there's a drop down arrow. And this is where you can go to settings. Now we go over a lot of this information, some of it today. For example, today in the second half of today's class, we're going to get your customer portal all set up. So we'll be in my information and also portal notification settings. So that's something to keep in mind for this afternoon's class. In MLS Pro, we go over team settings and IDX configuration. So if you're interested in those things, you might want to sign up to take those classes if you haven't done so already. Back to the dashboard. On the dashboard, you have all of these boxes, and we refer to these as widgets. You might find that your dashboard does not look like mine. And that's because you can hover over the top of these widgets and left click and just drag them and move them so that you can arrange your desktop in whatever fashion you want. The only widget that does not move is the news and alerts widget. It always stays in the top left-hand corner. But all of these others, you can just, again, hover over the top portion, left click and drag to move it wherever you want. You'll notice there's an arrow here. I can click on that arrow and it will collapse the widget. It will still be there, but it just collapses it where I can't see the information. If I click again, then it expands the widget and I can see the information in that widget. If I click on the X, it removes the widget from the dashboard, but not altogether. And sometimes people accidentally click on the X and they worry that they can't find their whatever it was they clicked on. So in this case, I clicked on Market Watch. So anytime that happens, once you click on the X, whether you do it on purpose or automatically, if you ever decide you want to bring that back to your dashboard, you just locate the additional widget on your dashboard, find the widget that you closed out and just hover over it till you see the crosshair with your cursor, with your mouse, left click, and then drag it back to where you want it to be on your dashboard. So we'll go over these just a bit, and I'll just kind of work from left to right. So we talked about news and alerts. This is Market Watch. Market Watch is, and I'm just going to click refresh. Okay. So Market Watch is intended to be a very broad overview of what's going on in your market area. All of these statuses, new listings, sold, rented, etc. All of these, you'll see these numbers in brackets. Now, these numbers are going to be dependent on the information you enter in the lower part of the widget. So for example, you can choose the property type you want to keep an eye on in your Market Watch. So if you primarily deal with residential, you can always change it at any time. You're not stuck with anything. I keep mine on residential. You can always change it to cross property, which would include everything, all the listing types. But you can also set the period of time. So I keep mine set for 24 hours. You could select today. If we selected today, that would be from midnight until the time you log into Matrix. Or we could look at the last 3 days or the last 7 days. So this gives you a snapshot of what's going on in your market area. Now you can customize this, and I'm not going to spend a ton of time here because we go into depth on this in the MLS Pro class. But really the only thing you want to set here is your geography. So the default, if I just go back here, the default is going to cover the entire Florida Gulf Coast MLS coverage area, which goes from everything in Lee County all the way down into the Marco Island area. So if we don't set a geography, that's what we're going to see. But you can click on that customize button and you can select your geography. You can do that by entering a city or a zip code. You can enter the geocodes. You can select from the quick links that you see here. And we're going to go into a lot of detail on these search forms. I'm not going to do that on this one. If you want that, then again, that MLS Pro class. But the good news is all of the search forms, the functionality is exactly the same. So when we begin to search in just a little bit, you'll find that the functionality doesn't change in the search forms. It stays the same throughout Matrix. I'm just going to cancel that. If I had selected a geography, we would see these numbers change based on whatever geography I had selected. And then you can click on any of these links and, for example, new listings. So in this case, this means there have been 126 new listings that were residential listings over the course of the last 24 hours. 282 listings changed to sold status within the last 24 hours. And nothing was leased or rented. There were 7 listings terminated, 20 expired, 51 went back on market. So you can see all the various statuses. And again, that's just a quick snapshot of what's going on in your market. As you're working in Matrix throughout the day, you can click the refresh button and it will refresh these numbers for you to always reflect whatever's gone on in the last 24 hours, right? So, an hour or two from now, if I click this refresh button, my numbers will change. Now, by contrast to Market Watch, we also have hot sheets. Market Watch being that broad overview of what's going on in your market area, hot sheets allows you to really zero in on some very specific things that you want to keep an eye on in your market area. Again, we'll cover this in depth in the MLS Pro class, but as you can see, it's customizable. You have all of the property types available. You can customize this on any number of levels. Once you click customize, you would just edit the criteria, for example, if you want a residential hot sheet. And you can also rename it. We're not going to go into that right now, but you can see, you can set up a lot of information. Maybe you have an investor that wants to keep an eye out for certain types of listings, short sales or foreclosures, for example. So you could set that up for an investor that's looking for those types of properties so that they stay right in front of you at all times. But we'll talk more about that in a different class. We spend too much time doing that here. We can't get through all the material. I will just talk about my favorite searches now. Anytime you run a search, you can save that search as a favorite search. So if it's a search you run frequently, you can save it, you can give it a name. Some people will give it their customer's name if they're saving it for a particular customer, or you can just name it based on the geography or whatever you want, really. But when we run a search, I'll show you how you can select to save this as a favorite search so that it shows up here in the widget. Here we have the Concierge widget. Now you won't see this widget on your dashboard until you set up a Concierge email. A Concierge email is a kind of a special auto email. It's a hands-on version of the auto email, if you will. Auto emails go out automatically, but if you set them up for concierge mode, then what happens is when new listings come available that match your search criteria, then rather than those listings going straight to your customer, they come to you first for your review. And then you can select which of those listings you want to approve or reject. So either you approve to send them on to your customer or you reject them. We'll get a chance to talk about this more a little bit later. I have a question. Is there a limit on saved searches? There's not a limit on saved searches. So you can find your saved searches in My Matrix, saved searches. So there's no limit there. There is a limit to the favorite searches. You can save up to 10 favorite searches. And I think I failed to mention you can save up to 10 hot sheets as well. So that concierge, again, we'll talk more about that in just a bit. That notification you see right up here at the top of the screen, that is letting me know that I need to view my concierge notifications. So I have new listings that I need to review and determine if I'm going to approve them or reject them. Then we have the My Listings widget. So this is where you'll see not only your listings, and you notice my incoming listings. So if you have active listings, you would see my active listings or my pending listings or my pending with contingencies or my withdrawn listings. All of those listing statuses are seen here. When you see my incoming listings, that's simply a term for my incomplete listings. In fact, it might be better phrased, my incomplete listings. So this is where you've gone in and you've started to input a listing, but you haven't set it to active yet. So that's considered an incoming listing. So you can click here, locate the listing, and go back in and continue to add information to that listing and to get it ready to go active. You'll also find your office listings here. So any active office listings, all of the various statuses. And again, just like in Market Watch, you have a refresh button. So as you're working throughout the day, you can click refresh and it will refresh the list for you. We have carts, so you do have the ability to set up carts for customers. It's kind of like shopping online. You can add listings to a cart, so you can create a cart for a customer and you can add listings to the cart, and then you can go back into the cart and decide what you're going to do with the listings at a later time, rather than just sending them directly on to the customer. No, you won't find the concierge widget on your dashboard. Again, the concierge widget is not available on the dashboard until you set up a concierge email. So you won't see that widget on your dashboard until you set up that type of email. My recent portal visitors. So we're going to be talking about the consumer portal mostly in the class this afternoon. We're really going to be focusing a lot of attention on that class this afternoon. That class runs from 1 until 2:30. And I know many of you are already signed up for it. But that is the class where we'll really talk about recent portal visitors. What you would see here is you would see your customer's name. If your customer favorited a property, you would see a little heart icon, maybe a date to show when they favorited that property or that listing. You might see a yellow heart, sort of an outline of a heart. That would be a possibility. So they saved the listing as a possibility. And this just allows you to see what you, sort of at a glance, a very high level overview of what your customers have been doing in their portal and when. Then my stats. We won't go over that at all today. We will cover that in the MLS Pro class next Wednesday. So I am just going to go ahead and scroll right back to the top, and we will go ahead and start searching. Before we start to search, do we have any other questions? Any other questions? All right, so a lot of what you're going to be doing well, you know what, before we go to that, let's back up just a little bit. Contacts. To set up your contacts in Matrix, you want to go to My Matrix and select Contacts. This is where you'll find your contacts. You'll see their name, their email address. If you select a category for them, and I'll show you how to do that in just a moment, you would see that here. You can see how many auto emails you have set up for them, how many saved searches you have set up for them, when that customer last, oh, I'm sorry, I was about to tell you something wrong. This is the date that you last engaged with your customer through the Matrix system. And then the last portal visit. You'll notice here are the carts. So if you set up carts for your customers, you can see those here. And if you did have a cart, for example, it would be a number 1 like this. That would be a clickable link. So you would be able to click on that number 1 and see the listings that were in your customer's cart. These are listing notes. When your customer views the listings that you send them, they view them in the customer portal. They can leave you a note in the customer portal. And I'm going to show you this afternoon where you would be able to set up notifications so you wouldn't necessarily have to find out about that note here. But this is a place where you can come and see if your customers have left you any notes. Any favorited properties, you'll see the heart here. You can click on these links. All of these are clickable links. You can click on them and you can see the listings that your customer would have favorited. The light bulb means possibilities. In the customer portal, instead of a light bulb, it's a heart shape that is outlined in sort of a yellow or a gold color. The wastebasket is any listings that your customer has discarded. And this reference number is something that I can point you to a video. If you go to the MLS Training from the dashboard and go to the videos on demand, there's one there called reverse prospecting, and that's where you can learn about this reference number. To add a contact, you simply click here on add. You'll notice the yellow fields. Anytime you see a yellow field in Matrix, that means that it's a required field. So the only thing that's required to add a contact to Matrix is the first and last name and the email address. And you'll notice here it says enter 1 or more email addresses separated by a comma. So make sure that you don't add a space to that. So if I add an email address, I put a comma right behind it, and then I begin to type the second email address with no spaces. You can select that your customer is pre-approved for a mortgage. And you might wonder, well, why would I want to do that? Through the reverse prospecting, which is the video that I just told you can go watch, reverse prospecting allows listing agents to see a reference number for that would identify the fact that that listing agent's listing had been viewed by someone. It would show the listing agent if it had been saved as a favorite or a possibility, and it would provide that listing agent with your contact information. That reference number identifies the customer for you, and it's a reference point for the listing agent to provide you. But this way, your customer's identity is protected, and it allows that listing agent to be proactive, and they can reach out to you. If you check that the mortgage is pre-approved, then that's going to give them more incentive maybe to reach out to you than someone that doesn't have a pre-approved loan, for example. So that's where you enter the information. You can enter as much or as little as you want. You remember there were categories, so you can click this drop down and choose buyer, seller, friend, or prospect. You can add notes. Nobody will see these notes except for you and anyone that you allow to have access to your account. And you would do that through team settings. You never want to share your password. Whenever you're done filling this information out, you would simply click save and you would see your new contact here. So that is how you would add contacts. What I recommend that you do is that you add yourself as a contact using a different email address than the one that's associated with your Matrix account. So whatever email address is on file with the association, the Realtor Association, it would need to be a separate email address. And the reason why is the system picks that up. So it only shows you the agent side of things. But if you set yourself up as a contact using a different email address, then that gives you the ability to see sort of from the customer's point of view, that customer portal experience, and it'll help you decide, how you can help them. You will get phone calls. I promise you'll get phone calls of, I got that email and now I'm in the portal, but what do I do? And if you haven't seen that, then you won't really know how to walk them through it. So that, again, that's something we will cover today, but it'll be in this afternoon's class. So I'm just going to go back to the dashboard, and I've got a couple of questions. The cart situation back there in contacts, it's just like all of the other icons. If there were a number here, if you had created a cart, first of all, if you create a cart for your customer, then you would find any listings that you add to their cart. You would see those numbers here, and you could click on that number and it would show you the listings in that customer's cart. So for example, if I had 12 listings in Sheldon Cooper's cart, I would see the number 12. I could click and it would show me all 12 listings that I placed in the cart. And then from the cart, I can decide what I want to do with those listings. Do I want to send them in an email? Do I want to just get rid of them? Whatever I want to do with them. It's kind of like shopping online. And then I have another question. Set up auto emails and added yourself as a CC. How would I go in and edit to remove my name from those? We'll talk about that later. We're just not there yet. And if I get too sidetracked, then we won't get through all of the material. It is not, it's never too late, Christina. It's not too late at all. What I'll need you to do is I'm just going to go ahead and place my email address in the chat panel. And if you'll send me your, just send me an email telling me you would like a link to this afternoon's webinar, I'll get that to you after this class is over. All right, great. So we are going to go ahead and start searching. So the searching that we're going to do is going to be a residential search. When you come into search, you'll notice that the status is always defaulted to look for active listings. Now, there are going to be times when you're coming in here to maybe do a comparative market analysis. So you're going to want to pull in those pending listings and those closed listings. When you select those boxes, you'll see that these numbers pop in 0 to 120 days. So you can change that. You're not stuck with it. You can just highlight that, and you can say, for example, maybe you only want to look at 90 days. You could actually not even do 0. You could go from 30 to 60. So you can enter whatever numbers you want there. Another thing you can do is, instead of adding numbers here, is you can click on the calendar icon, and this way you can enter a date range. So maybe rather than entering 120 days, 0 to 120 days, maybe you want to go all the way back to the first of the year. So you just click the back button in your calendar. We can go to January 1st and select OK. Actually, mess that up. So click on January 1st. Then we want to scroll. Then we want to scroll through and find today's date. Goodness gracious, it's June already. And select OK. And so now we're searching a date range. So we're searching for pending with contingencies from January 1st all the way through today. So that's how that works. But we're going to be looking for active listings. There's also sold for data entry only listings. And you should have learned about those in your compliance class. But that's where you would be searching for listings that were not entered into the MLS. The listing wasn't entered in the MLS, but it's in there for comps. So if I'm running comps, I would probably include that, sold for data entry only. The next thing we come to is building design. So you can search for multiple building designs at one time. For example, if I want to search for single family homes, I simply click on it. If I want to make multiple choices, I have to hold down my control key on a PC or the command key if I'm working on a Mac, and I can then select all of the property types that my customer would be interested in. You'll notice we have the or and not buttons underneath that field. So in this case, I'm searching for single family homes or attached villas or detached villas. If I change that to not, then I'm actually searching for everything except single family or villas, right? So depending on how you're searching, you might want to change that button just to make it easier for yourself. So we're searching for single family, villa, and detached. If I've accidentally clicked on something I really don't want, again, I just hold down the control key on my PC or command on a Mac and click again, and that will deselect any entries that I clicked on by accident or I've changed my mind about. Of course, waterfront, if you are searching for waterfront properties, you can enter that. But if it doesn't matter if the property is waterfront or not, it's best to leave that blank. Anytime a field doesn't matter or a criteria doesn't matter, it's best to leave it blank, because the more information we enter on the search form, the fewer results we're going to pull. As of right now, we have 1,848 listings, but the only thing we've selected is active and single family. Of course, Gulf access, yes or no, and then we could select the specific water type. You'll notice there's a new button down here, there's and. So you may find that you have a customer that would want Gulf frontage. Gulf frontage and bay. Then you can select and, which means that I'm only pulling listings that have both the Gulf frontage and bay frontage. So I'm going to deselect those because you can see our listings drop to almost nothing. And then, of course, canal. So if my customer is looking for property on a canal, they may be interested in having it at least a certain width. If you're new to the area, that's oftentimes, well, it can be for a variety of reasons, but some of those reasons could include anything from privacy to the size of their vessel, to the size of the boat. So that would be why you would want to select a certain canal width. And you can make multiple choices. All of these boxes that you can scroll our multiple choice boxes. Now I'm going to skip the center part of this form right now and jump over here to the right-hand side. And we see the MLS number. Now, if I'm going to search for listings by an MLS number, I'm not going to do it on a search form. I'm going to do that right up here in the search bar. I'm just going to enter the MLS number and click the search icon right over here. And that's because if I enter it here, I have to kind of know the status. I have to have the right status selected. So if I'm not sure of that, then it won't pull the listing. If I enter the MLS ID up here, it'll pull the listing regardless of the status. List price and current price are exactly the same thing. They are redundant to some degree, at least to the extent it doesn't matter which one you use when you're searching for a property or even when you're viewing listings, because the current price is the list price. And you'll also notice there are check marks here with the triple zeros, so it's defaulted to search by thousands of dollars. What that means is I can enter 300, for example. Look what that did to my matches. I went from over 1,800 all the way down to 5 matches because it's pulling single family homes that are priced at exactly $300,000. I can add a plus sign to that. And now I'm searching for properties that are listed for $300,000 or more. The only issue I have with that, if I'm searching for someone, I don't want to pull those $1 million listings if my customer's in the $300,000 range, right? You can also add a minus sign there and search for 300,000 or less. But again, you've got that same problem. And now you're pulling up probably distressed properties and everything else. So it's probably best to search within a range, and your customer will usually give you that range. So just to make sure we pull a fair amount of listings, I'm going to actually change this to 350 to 400. Now I dropped to 120 listings. I've already dropped to 120 listings based on price alone. I can enter bedrooms. This is a multiple choice box, just like all the others we've seen. So depending on how many bedrooms your customer wants, if they want at least 2 bedrooms, then you can select that. You can select, ooh, my screen shrunk all of a sudden. There we go. So I'm just holding down my control key. Again, that would be the command key if I was on a Mac. And I'm selecting all of the 2 and 3 bedroom options. You'll notice that you have the option to just search for 2 bedrooms plus a den, which is kind of nice. With regard to bathrooms, living area, acres, year built, garage spaces, all of those fields work exactly like list price to the extent that you can use the plus sign, the minus sign, or search a range. For bathrooms, I'm going to add 2 or more. Living area. So depending on what my customer's needs are, maybe they're downsizing, maybe they're upsizing, right? So I'm going to enter that according to what they want. If it doesn't matter, leave it blank. But if it does matter, then, you can enter that range. Maybe they, want something around 16 or 1,800 square feet, but they have some flexibility. So you could enter, 1,500 to 2,000 or something. Again, if it doesn't matter, if they haven't gone into a lot of detail about that, then you can leave it blank. Acres, of course, that's going to be how many acres do they want? If it doesn't matter, you can leave that blank. You're built. So if your customer doesn't want anything, and I've actually need to change that to 2001 plus, my screen size, that might be better for you guys anyway. I'll just leave it that way. 2001 plus. So this is going to pull homes that were built in the last 20 years. It's not going to pull any homes that are older than 20 years old. So that's how I can use the year built field, if it matters. Again, if it doesn't matter, just leave it blank. Garage spaces works the same way. Does the customer want a private pool? Private pool in the MLS is always referring to a pool that only your customer has access to on their property. It's not a community pool. There seems to be some confusion out there around what a private pool is. It's quite simply, you walk out your back door, you have access to the pool, and no one else has access to the pool without your permission. A community pool is just that. It's a community pool. It may be private to the community, but it's not private in by the MLS definition. And so that covers the right-hand side. Now, there are a couple of things. We're going to talk about the bottom middle portion of the search form. If you're searching for short sales, you can enter that information, or foreclosures. If you're searching by a certain listing broker, you can enter that, their ID. This is a pick list. Anytime you see this little icon next to a field, it's a pick list. When you click on it, you can add the information. Here we would add information to search for the brokerage that we're looking for. And then water and sewer. So this would be referring to water and sewer being paid, where it says paid or unpaid. That's referring to whether or not it's paid through HOA or condo fees. That's what that is referring to. And then, of course, there are other items there with regard to water and sewer, and you can add those if they matter to your customer. At the bottom, if you continue to scroll down, you can, of course, you see we have 85 matches. You can add additional fields to your search form, and you will definitely want to do this. Specifically, you can see the ones I've already added: total annual recurring fees, mandatory, is the mandatory HOA mandatory or not, HOA fee, condo fee, community type. I've already got that one added. I added in exterior features and status type. And status type is going to include everything you see in that field around construction. Is it new construction? A resale property simply means it's a pre-existing. Pre-construction means that there is a building permit. A building permit does exist for a specific structure to be built on a specific parcel, but the dirt hasn't been moved yet. Under construction, they're underway with the construction, but there's no certificate of occupancy. And again, on brand new construction, that would be the certificate of occupancy. Well, first the construction is completed. They do have the certificate of occupancy, but the home has never been occupied. So you can add those. The way you do that, and if you've never added a field, you're not going to see add remove. You're only going to see add, and you can simply click right there, and you'll see the available fields right over here. Now, you might wonder, how do you know available fields? For example, my customer is looking for a fenced backyard. If I start to type in the word fence, nothing comes up. So you may or may not know which field to add. I'm going to show you a little shortcut that might come in handy for 2 or 3 things. We might kill three or four birds with this particular stone. So I'm just going to hover over my matrix right up here, and I'm going to right click, and I'm going to click Open Link in New Tab. And you'll notice right up here, I have matrix open in a new tab. This can come in handy when you're in here searching for a customer and you get a phone call and you need to do something completely different in matrix. This is where you want to do that. Just hover and select open link in new tab with the right click. And now you've got a whole new instance of Matrix running. So the reason I came here is to show you where you can find the residential profile sheet. If we click on that residential profile sheet, you'll see that this is going to match up with the input form when you enter a listing into Matrix. It also matches up with all the fields that are available in the search form. So if you don't know where to add a fenced yard, you could do it like this. You want to hold down your control or your command key and the letter F as in Frank or find, and that's going to open a search box for you. Now, depending on your device, your search box may look different than mine, but that's okay. A box will open. And if I begin to type in the word fence, then I see one of two. So that means it's in the listing form twice. And I see the first place it's located is exterior features. Well, that's exactly the field that I want to enter on my search form, exterior features. If my customer wants that fenced yard, that's what I can add. Now we can click the down button. It'll show us, sometimes it'll say next, again, depending on your browser or your device, and it'll show us completely fenced. So this is that customer that wants that home that has that wall all the way around it, right? It's completely fenced. So in that case, you would want to add the security field to your search. So if you haven't already done so, I recommend that you download that residential profile sheet and save it, because it can really come in handy when you're doing those searches. So I'm going to go ahead and close that extra instance of Matrix that we have running. You had difficulty finding guest house? Well, let's just try to give that a go here. I'm going to right click, open in new link. I'm going to select the residential profile sheet and open my find, and you said guest house. Okay, so we actually see that it's there 6 times, just the word guest. So let's add house, and now we've dropped to 2 times. So you can see that, first of all, guest house has its own field called guest house description. That's one thing we could do if we wanted to search for a guest house. And then the second place is just, it's actually going to be right there as well. It's all about the living area. So can you show one more time how to find? Absolutely, I can. So I'm going to show you guys one more time how to find the residential profile sheet. But you can see how easy that is. You just click that, hold that control or command key and the letter F and type in whatever amenity or feature your customer is looking for, and that'll let you know what field you need to add to your search form. So I'm going to go ahead and close that profile sheet. The profile sheet is found on the matrix, on your My Matrix dashboard, and it's in the external links widget, and it's right here, residential profile sheet. Not only is that profile sheet there, but all of the listing types are here. So residential income, rentals, those comp sold listings, the commercial listings, and the boat docks, as well as lots and land. So I'm going to close that again. And so I've already added that, but what I would do, just for example, that guest house. So I could type in guest house, and I can highlight and select add. And that would add guest house to my search form. So now I'm just going to go back. And if my customer really did want that fenced yard, you see I have exterior features, and I can just scroll through. They're all in alphabetical order. I would simply highlight fence. But you see it dropped my matches all the way down to 28. So I'm actually not going to do that, but that lets you know how you can do it. The way these text fields work, when you add these text fields, if your customer is looking at a home that has an HOA, and this is going to be about the monthly fee. So always keep that in mind. It's not the annual HOA fee. It's going to be broken down into the monthly fee. So if your customer doesn't want to pay more than $400 a month, you can put 400 minus, and it's only going to pull listings that have an HOA of less than $400 a month. The same thing works for the condo fee. So you can do that as well. Now it is time to set where we want to search. So now we're going to go to the top portion of the middle portion of the search form. And you see we have a lot of different choices here. We can search by city. We can search by subdivision or condominium name. This is a pick list where I can find it if I'm not sure. I can search by zip code. I can search by development name. And again, there's a pick list. If I know the geo area, I can enter it. There's a pick list. Or I can simply scroll through and highlight the ones where I want to search, the geo areas that I want to search in. And again, just holding down the control or the command key. Or I can use these quick links for Bonita Estero, Olive Cape Coral, Fort Myers Beach areas. So you can see all the choices there. So you can search in all of those ways. You can even enter a specific street name if you happen to know a specific street name that your customer wants to be on in this market. Good luck with that. But my favorite way to search, and I think yours will be too, is going to be the map search. So that's what we're going to do. I want to draw your attention. We've got 3 tabs right up here. So we've got the criteria tab. That's actually the search form itself. That's the tab we're on right now. And then we've got the map tab. That's where we're getting ready to go. And then we've got the results tab. This is going to be where we'll find all of the results of our search. At the bottom of the screen, we can clear our search form. That would erase all of the criteria that we've entered. We can see that we have 85 matches. I can jump straight to the map from here, or I can go straight to the results from here. I can also get to the map by clicking here. So it doesn't matter. It's going to take me to the same place. So I've got 3 different places where I can go to the map. I'm just going to go ahead and click here. And by the way, check out the speed bar. This, if you kind of look at the speed bar when you're putting in search criteria, it can be really helpful for you to start to understand how the code that the speed bar likes to use. So the A stands for active. The SF is, of course, single family. The 350 to 400 is the price range we selected. And then we entered two or more baths. Now, we also included the 2 to 3 bedrooms plus a den. But you'll notice my check mark over here. If I hover over it, I can choose to exclude that, but I'm not, of course. I've got it checked. But if I hover over that, it's going to show me what I'm not seeing in the speed bar. If I hadn't chosen the den options, I could put the bedrooms into the speed bar as well. And if I do that, I would always put the bedrooms before the bathrooms. But again, if you take that MLS Pro class, you get a whole guide about how to use, I call it the speed bar cheat sheet. So yeah, it just kind of teaches you. If you glance up there every now and then, you can see it. When you first come into your map, you kind of see all of South Florida. And that's probably not terribly beneficial for you. So you can zoom in on the map, and you can see my mouse here in the middle of the screen. I'm just left clicking and dragging over here to sort of center my map to the area that I want to look at. I can zoom in or zoom out, and I can pull this down. You'll notice I'm in satellite mode. I typically keep it in just map mode, which is basically street view, but you can do whatever you want with that. you have a lot of map tools that are really, really nice to use. So we're going to talk about those for a bit. Any questions before we start talking about the map tools? One of my favorite ways to search is if my customer gives me, for example, a work address, and they want to be able to have maybe a 5 mile or less commute. You can enter your customer's work address here, and then you'll want to hit the enter key on your keyboard. And it's going to drop the pin right on your customer's work address. And this is really neat because now we can scroll out just a bit. And here I can click on my radius. So if I hover over this, what's supposed to look like a circle, I can click on that. And I'm going to come down and I'm going to click right at the tip of my dot. And I'm just going to hold that left click and drag. Now you'll notice it's measuring the miles for me. So I'm already at 5 miles. So I'm just going to zoom in a little bit. I'm going to zoom in a little bit. Now you'll notice right on the outer edge, if I hover, I get this little dot. I can click on that and I can drag in or out so I can change the mileage. But I'm just going to keep it right there. And so this got rid of all of those other listings. We had 80 something results. Now we only have 6. So that's where I probably want to be talking to my customer and saying, how dedicated are you to only having to drive 5 miles to work? Maybe they'd push it to a 7. And so then you can come in here and you can drag it out, maybe even to 8, whatever your customer is willing to go for. So that's really, really a nice tool to use. It could be any number of things. I want to be in a certain mile radius of whatever. You can just type the address into that location and use this radius tool. You also have a rectangle. Now you can use all of these tools can be used independently, or they can be used alone. Independently or alone. Duh. They can be used independently, or they can be used together. So maybe your customer did say, that 8 mile radius, but just to be on the safe side, there, it's a tight market right now, right? Low inventory. Let's go ahead and include that Lehigh Acres area. So now I can click on my rectangle and I can come over here and I'm just going to start at the edge of my circle, and I'm just going to include Lehigh Acres in my search. So that gives us a few more properties to choose from. So I'm going to show you how you can hover over that red dot. You notice you've got a red dot here, we've got a red dot over here. When you hover over those red dots, you've got choices. You can delete the shape. You can exclude the shape. That would simply mean don't show me anything in Lehigh Acres. My mother-in-law lives over there and I just don't want to be anywhere near there. Sorry, mothers-in-law, I'm a mother-in-law, so I can joke that way. Or if we include this shape, then of course it's going to include those. But I'm actually just going to go ahead and delete that shape. The polygon is kind of cool, particularly if you're doing searching for comps, because you can actually come in here and draw around a subdivision. Now, I know that that's not what we're doing right now, but I'm just going to show you how to use it. So if I click on the polygon, I'm going to go ahead and click. So that's my first click. And then as I drag, well, I messed up. I'm going to come back and grab it again and then click. And then I'm not holding the click. I'm just dragging my mouse out. When I want to change directions, I'm going to click again. And I'm just going to drag, changing directions. I'm clicking, I'm dragging, just clicking every time I change directions. I always have to stop where I started. So I go back to that starting point and I click again, and now I've stopped drawing. You always have to stop drawing where you started drawing. So that's how you can use the polygon tool. And again, that's a really neat tool to use when you're like searching for comps and you want to draw around a very specific subdivision. I have a question. HOA. If someone doesn't want to pay for HOA and live in a non-HOA community, is there selection for that? Absolutely. Yeah, in the search form over here on criteria, HOA fee, I would just enter 0. No HOA fee or no HOA. So back to our map. Could you please show that again? Show what again, Chris? What did you want me to show again? Because I didn't see your question right away. Oh, you got it. Good, good, good. I could never get this polygon to form right. Any pointers? Yeah. So the best way to use the polygon is just to be zoomed in pretty tight to a specific subdivision and have a really good mouse. If you're trying to do this without a mouse, it's not going to work very well for you. It's almost impossible without a mouse to get it right. But just click on the polygon, click on the outer edge of the subdivision one time, and then just begin to draw your line. When you're ready to change directions, click and draw and click and click. See, every time I change directions, I'm just clicking and back to the starting point. And now I'm done. So yeah, that's there. It's not hard. It does take practice. It definitely takes a little bit of practice to get used to that. Okay, so other things we have on the map. You can freehand polygon. Have fun with that. My freehanding is kind of bad. That polygon looked a lot better, I think, when I used the tool. But that might be a great pointer. That might be a great pointer if you don't like to use the polygon, because you just get on there and draw. We can clear all shapes. This would just literally erase everything that we've done on the map so far. Before we talk about layers, we've got the recenter button. Sometimes you can get a little click happy. Sometimes I do. I wind up maybe out here in the Gulf of Mexico or something. Anytime I click recenter, it's going to bring me right back to the area that I'm working in. Another thing you might want to do is when you go in and you do your first search is once you get this map set for your market area, and it's probably zoomed in a little tight right now, maybe there or maybe even out a little bit further, whatever works for you, maybe something like that. You can come here to this little gear icon, and you can save this map view as my starting default. And that way, every time you come in to do a search, it's going to look just like this instead of that view we saw when we first came in, which was more like that. So it's just going to zoom you more into your area that you consider your market. Don't forget, you can change to satellite view. You can click that terrain button and change to satellite view. The terrain just is exactly that. Yeah, and then of course you've got labels. So labels are just going to be the names of streets and things like that. Streets and, well, there you go. Little areas, towns, subdivisions, etc. So I keep mine on map view just to make it easy for you guys to see. I think it's easier to see on a webinar on map view. And Okay, so layers. Let's talk about layers. When we click on layers, you'll notice first off, we're zoomed out. It's showing us in red letters that we are not at a low enough elevation. We're not zoomed in low enough to view parcels and zip codes or flood zones. So if I want to see those things, then I have to zoom in closer. So let's just do that. Let's zoom in, and you have to get pretty close. That should do it right there. Nope, one more. Now, okay. So now I'm zoomed in where I can see the parcels, but I'm actually going to take it a step further. I'm going to really zoom in here for you, okay? Because what I want to show you is I can add zip codes to my map. Maybe zoomed in a little too close for that one, but there we go. Now we can see the zip codes populated. Okay, I'm going to remove zip codes. And you can see all of the other items, city, county, flood zones. So then it color codes the map. It gives you the flood zones. You can also see this in the tax records. And you don't want to put too many layers on your map because it can really be difficult to see. If you're placing a listing in the MLS and you're not sure about the geo area of the listing, you can click on geo areas and it'll show you those. So this is under boundaries. Under your layers, you've got topics. So you've got boundaries, and I've got parcel selected. There's MLS status. You guys don't have all of the same ones that I have. So I don't believe you have distressed. I do know you have parcel characteristics. So for example, I could say owner name. And when I do that, if I zoom in here really, really close, you're going to be able to see the last name of the individuals that own these parcels. Let me zoom out, just look the wrong way. There we go, zoom out just a little bit. And we should be able to see the last names. I think I zoomed out too far for the last names. There we go. So last names begin to populate on the parcels. Another thing that will populate on the parcels would be the address. So that's going to be the street number. So that's kind of nice as well. You can also see trends. So you can see what's going on as far as market activity, sales activity. And then you can add points of interest. So if your customer is interested in being close to shopping or being close to gas stations and banking, maybe restaurants, you can add those. And then when we come in here, you see our map begins to populate and show us where those things are. And I'm just going to zoom out again. I'm going to go ahead and remove these layers now. And actually, I like to keep my parcels. Where did it? Parcel characteristics. There we go. All right. So, oops, got crazy with my mouse wheel there for a moment. All right, so I'm just going to zoom out again. So we're within an 8-mile radius of our customer's work address, which is right here. We've pretty much covered all of your map tools. So now we're going to go and check out the results. So I can click right here to do that. So the neat thing about using that radius and putting in the customer's work address is the listings will come in and they'll show you in the first column distance. This is a column that you won't have if you don't use the radius. So the only reason this column exists is because we used the radius, and it's just showing us how far away these listings are from the work address. So we're running short on time. So we're just going to run through this really quickly because a lot of the rest of it we will cover in this afternoon's class with regard to getting into detail about the results grid. So from here, as I'm working with my results, you'll notice that I don't have the ability, these are grayed out, I don't have the ability to click on anything except the stats button, and that's under the actions tab. So what I want to do, first of all, for your benefit, is I'm going to change this to 10 per page. The default is to look at 25 listings per page. I'm going to just change that to 10 so it's easier for you guys to see. But also to show you that the select all button, which doesn't say select all, but it's in the top left-hand corner above all of the other listings. The select all button is a bit deceiving. When I click select all, I'm only clicking to select all of the properties that I can see, because if you notice, if I go to page 2, those properties aren't selected. So be careful with the select all button. You're only selecting what you can view. So if we had 80 something listings up here like we did a minute ago, then I would want to change my view to 100 to make sure I was selecting all. But you do have to select properties in order to get these buttons to line up. Now I'm just going to select these 3 listings right here at the top for no particular reason, just to show you that now I can do all of these things with these 3 listings. So I can send a one-time email, and that is a one-time email. It's going to be emailing my customer these 3 listings, and that customer would view them in their customer portal. So we click on email. Now I could enter an email address here, and I suppose that would be okay. However, if I do that, I won't be able to see my customer's activity in their portal. I'll have no idea if they viewed the listings, if they favorited the listings. I won't have a clue. I won't know. So in order to know what my customers are doing in the portal, I have to create them as a contact. So this gives you an opportunity, if you haven't already done so, to enter that contact's information. You can still enter, the category, and in this case, it would certainly be a buyer, and then their name and email address. Don't forget, if you're putting in 2 email addresses, then you're using a comma in between the 2 with no spaces at all. Now I'm just going to cancel that. You've got this show more fields, and that would just be where you would add additional contact information. You can blind copy yourself on the emails if you want to, but there's no reason to, because you can see them here in Matrix anyway, and it's really just going to make your email blow up unnecessarily. So but that's up to you. Different people are different. Add in a subject line. Hey, I found, properties I found that match your search criteria, whatever you want to say. And then of course, just type in your email. We'll talk about setting up your email signature in this afternoon's class. And then of course, just click send. And what that's going to do is it's going to send these 3 listings to your customer's portal. Your customer will get an email, and they'll have to select to view the listings, to opt in to receive your email. And when they do that, it'll take them into their portal, and then from that point on, they won't have to do that again. We could print these listings, but before you ever print anything in Matrix, always click print and always select print to PDF first. The reason you want to do that is because it's going to let you see what it is that you're printing, and you can see in this case, that might be difficult to see if it were printed out. So you might want to print something here, but you would probably want to change your display if you were going to do that. The CMA, if we were doing a CMA, of course, I could click there and start a CMA. I can click directions. Maybe I'm showing these 3 listings. I can click on directions. It's going to give me directions from one listing to the next. Turn-by-turn directions. I can email these directions to my customer. I can print them. I can add in a starting point or stopping point. I'm just clicking back to results. I can click on stats. Then I have to select tabular, and it's just going to show me a side-by-side comparison of those 3 listings. If I had checked off more, it would show me all of those. And then of course, this is something I can print if I want to. And then I can export these listings. If I anything I export from here is always going to be in a CSV file. And of course, that's compatible and will open in Excel. The other webinar starts at 1 o'clock this afternoon and goes until 2:30. And my email address is somewhere in the chat panel, so you can just shoot me an email if you haven't already registered for it, and I'll send you a link so that you can join. Showing time, I can click showing time and I can add all 3 of those listings to showing time and then go in and schedule them. And that way I can do them all together rather than clicking on each individual showing time button and having to do them one at a time. Now, if one of my listings were not, didn't have showing time available on it, like a couple of these listings don't, then of course that piece won't work. I have to follow the instructions in the listing to set up the showing. But in this case, I can use showing time for all 3 of these listings. And then of course you have the quick CMA. The quick CMA, we talk about more in the CMA tools class. And that is just a little, giving you a little more detail than the stats button actually did. I'm going to close that report, and you see that report actually prints really nicely. And so that's all of the options from the Actions tab. From the Refine tab, I can narrow down. So narrow simply means when I click on narrow, it takes all of the other results away except for the 3 that I selected. Now, if I want to bring my original results back, I have to look right up here above the name of this grid that we're looking at. You'll see what we call cookie crumbs. It says original results. I can click there and it's going to bring all of the original results back to me. Likewise, I can discard those 3 listings, get rid of them altogether. And if I made a boo-boo, I can undiscard those listings. From the Save tab, this is where you can create a saved search. So if this is a search that I want to save for whatever reason, maybe I'm not ready to set up that email yet, I can do that here. I can give the search a name. I can give it a customer name. I can give it something to do with the geography or subdivision, whatever. That's going to be completely up to you. If I want to give it my customer's name or associate it with a customer, and I haven't created them as a contact, then you see I have another opportunity to do that. Or if I've already created them as a contact and I just want to associate this saved search with that customer, I can choose by clicking the drop down here. And you'll remember the favorite search widget on the My Matrix dashboard. If I wanted to enable this as a favorite search because it's a common search that I do all the time, I can click here to do that. Now you can do that all the way up until you have 10 favorite searches. Once you get to 10, it won't let you do that anymore. So, but you can go in and delete favorite searches. So we'll talk about that later in the next class. But for now, this is how you can get that saved search onto your dashboard. Simply click save when you're all done. You're good to go. It'll show up on your dashboard. And then, of course, we have the auto email, the new auto email. Could you please give us an example of how to schedule when there is no schedule icon? It's going to be in the listing instructions. We're almost out of time, but I clicked on the wrong one. Let's go back to the single line display. So here's a listing that doesn't have showing time. So if I scroll down here to the bottom, here are my showing instructions down here under listing information. I can see the showing instructions tell me to call the listing agent. And of course, the listing agent's information is right up here. So you just have to look at the details of the listing to find out how to go about showing. So if I want to set this up as an auto email, and remember what we were doing before, when we were on the Actions tab and when we were on the Refine tab, we had to select specific properties. But now, in that we've gotten to the Save tab, we're no longer concerned about specific properties or specific listings, but rather the overall search criteria that, those active single family homes in that certain price range with a certain number of bedrooms and bathrooms within a certain mile radius of this customer's work address. But it could be anything. It could maybe simply be a subdivision or something. Whatever the case, it's no longer about the individual listings, but it's about all of the search criteria we set up. You can see it in code in the speed bar, but if you look right down here, you can kind of get a summary of all of our search criteria. So we talked about saving the search, but now we're going to set up an auto email. So again, if we haven't already created the contact, we get another chance to do that. And of course, you have to do that to set up an auto email. We've already got them set up for an auto email. Then we can select them from our list. Let me see if I think everybody, there we go, Peter Griffin. I can blind copy myself. I can copy someone else on this email if I want to. I have to give the email a subject. So I do have to provide that. It's in yellow, so it's required. And you'll notice the welcome message. You can edit this to some degree. I don't recommend it. And the reason I don't is because there's a lot of code in here. I've had people come to me and say, my customer never got their welcome email. And I said, well, when you set up the welcome email, did you edit did you edit it? Did you edit the welcome email? And they'll say, yeah, there was all this crazy jargon in there. I didn't know. It was just weird, and I erased it. Well, they were erasing the code that allows your customer to opt in to receive the auto email. So you certainly don't want to do that. Again, it's written quite nicely, but if you want to change anything, just change it anywhere, maybe in the upper portion, but stay away from the code. This would be the first email. So this, as soon as you set it up, this is the one that would go out. But then after that, the recurring email. So then you can write this one yourself. You can say whatever you want here. Once you're done setting up whatever you want to say in these emails, you can save that as your default text so that you don't have to type that over and over and over again. Again, we'll talk about setting up your email signature in this afternoon's class. There again, we see the criteria. And I'm going to skip over settings for just a moment because the traditional auto email is the default. And it's set up by default to go out daily in the morning, 7 days a week. But you can change that. So today's market, there's not a lot of inventory. There's a lot of people setting up the ASAP email. That means the minute a listing goes active on the MLS that matches your customer search criteria, they're going to get that email right then and there. However, you can change the date. Just remove that check mark by clicking on it, or you could click clear here. And maybe talk to your customer. Maybe they don't like to get a lot of email. Maybe they work during the week and they would like to get them in the evenings. So, you just select whatever they want. Just select whatever they want. Maybe in the mornings on the weekends, right? You notice I left Wednesday blank. Once I click save, even though today is Wednesday and Wednesday's not a selection, that email is going to go out immediately. That's going to be in your customer's inbox in minutes from the time you click save. So just be aware of that. From that point on, they're going to get an email based on your schedule, but also based on new listings coming on the market that match that criteria, or in some cases coming back on the market that match that criteria. Some listings might have gone pending with contingency, so they were not on the market anymore. And the contingency didn't work out and the deal fell through. So now they're back on market. So then it would show up again in your customer's email. But this way, your customer's not getting emailed with the same listings over and over again, but they're only getting emails when new listings come out that match the search criteria. So for example, if I send this right now, if nothing else comes available on the market that matches this exact search criteria, they may not get that email on Thursday or even Friday. They will only get it when a new listing pops up that matches the criteria. Now, the option to that, and this is a very hands-off approach. This is like one and done. You set this up and you're good to go. The hands-on approach is that concierge email that we talked about at the very beginning of the class. And the concierge email is, again, more of a hands-on approach. It allows you to have the listings that match the search criteria sent to you rather than to the customer directly. And when you approve them, it looks just like what we're about to look at right now. So if I click on save and go to approvals, now I can pick and choose which of these listings I want to send on to my customer. So I can click, check the boxes of the listings I approve selected. In the same way, I can reject the listings, click reject. There are other options. You can see that you can print this. You can get directions. That's a lot of listings to get directions for. But that's how you set up the concierge email. Now, when you do that, now you see that 2 went to a 3 because I have all of these listings. The listings that I don't do anything with, if I don't approve them or reject them, they're just going to sit there. They're just going to sit there in that concierge alert that's going to be on my my matrix dashboard. So I have a question. It says, how do we go back to this save page and edit our selections? Oh, okay. Good question. So let me get through this real quick because we're already over time. So let me get through this really quick and then we'll talk about that. So I'm actually going to reject all of the rest of these just for time's sake and select done. And I'm going to take you back to the dashboard and just show you here in Concierge. We just set that up for Peter Griffin. So those 17 listings we were just looking at, they're still there for me to view. And I can decide what I want to do with them. Then I always have this alert right up here. And in the next class, this afternoon's class, we'll talk more about how you can get text notifications or email notifications on various things as well. With regard to deselecting blind copy and changing, so anytime you want to change anything that you've set up with your auto email or even delete the auto email, you buyer, you work with your buyer, you found them a home, they closed the deal, and they don't want that email coming anymore. So you just come into your auto email from My Matrix Auto Email. You select the email that you are wanting to work with, and we'll choose this one, Peter Griffin, and we'll click this drop down arrow. And from here, I can go in and change the settings. So if I change the settings, you'll notice this page looks really familiar, right? So I can change the CC, I can change the blind copy, I can change, I can disable concierge mode. I can do all of that. So I'm going to go back and I can tweak the criteria. You can see that. I can actually view the results from here. I can open the portal, which we don't have time to do, but we will do in the next class. Or my customer tells me I didn't get that email. The first thing I'm going to do is verify their address, their email address, and make sure I entered their email address or contact information correctly. Then I can come in here and click on resend welcome, or I can delete the auto email from here. So that's all found underneath My Matrix auto email. And that's where you manage all of the auto emails that you have set up. I'm going to delete that auto email. It's going to ask me if I'm sure, and I'm going to say okay. All right, guys. Well, I think we have covered it. If you have any questions, now's the time.